Good afternoon, everybody. First, I want to thank the judges for being here. Thank everybody. We're really excited to be here with you. My name is Felix Watson. I'm the founder, CTO of Handle. This is my co-founder, Phil, and CEO. And we're building Handle, a peer-to-peer recommendation platform. Now, before we get started, I want you to do me a favor. Think about the last time you got some really great news. Maybe somebody told you that you should try this very company called Happy. Really good inside. Maybe somebody told you that you should buy Bitcoin when it was at $20. So now you're feeling really great. And the thing about good advice from the right person, it can turn a good experience into a great experience. So today we're going to talk a little bit about advice specifically in the travel market and how it can transform experience. Now we're here to ask you for a seed round of $500,000 for this business, and so we're going to jump right in. And so, building peer-to-peer search. A quote from Nielsen says, recommendations from friends are the most credible advertising. So let's look at how this plays out. One of the personas we got to know really well while researching this concept was someone we call Seeking Sally. Now, Seeking Sally might be pursuing a product that she's looking for on Amazon, maybe a phone case. Had 5 stars on Amazon, but a friend of hers said, no, I bought it, didn't work out very well, I had to get a new one within a week. So she doesn't buy it. Conversely, she may have been looking for some Caribbean food. My family happens to be from the U.S. Virgin Islands, so I had great advice for her. And she saw something on Amazon, it only had 3 stars, but I told her, look, this jerk chicken tastes just like my grandmother makes it. You need to try it. So what did she do? She automatically tried it. So the way we're thinking about this platform is very important, especially when you think about travel and travel advice among friends. What we've seen is that there's super high quality advice being given between friends, but sometimes it's difficult to identify who in your network may have that advice, especially in the context of business school, for example. You got a whole bunch of friends in business school, maybe one of them spent 2 months in South Africa and you're planning a trip. You don't know that necessarily, but that advice is out there. And so the challenge is, what do you do when that happens? You resort to crowdsourcing. You resort to these aggregated scoring data, these 5-star metrics that you see on Amazon and Yelp. And you rely on those when friends could really do a better job of helping you. So that's part of the issue we're trying to solve with our peer-to-peer travel advice app. And so the first thing it does right off the bat, it helps you identify people in your network that have great information. You're looking at a screenshot here. It's a little bit blurry, it's hard to see, but it shows you, in the context of your friend network, who's sharing what advice with whom. It doesn't show you the exact spots, but you get a sense of who has great advice. And you can ask them directly for that advice. And this is very critical, asking direct messages between friends that is yielding high quality advice. And so you have an easy place to save that advice next. And so the goal, as I was saying, is to discover and share travel advice within our platform. So when you look at these screens right here, these are some prototypes that Phil and I use to recruit our amazing team of engineers, designers, and data scientists. And you might be thinking, why data science? We have some great data scientists at UCLA that are helping us build out our proprietary algorithm that helps score the people in your network on how likely they are to be able to give you great travel advice. And this is a huge competitive advantage for us, and what we believe is a little bit of a differentiator that will prevent bigger players from being able to jump in and replicate this super easily. So it's really easy to get this data from your photos and your social media accounts, and that's why we're excited to explore the travel vertical first. And so after you score and you figure out who has the advice, for example, say Paris, you quickly ask them with a direct message, you can save that information, and then you have it in an easy to use place. No more searching through emails, text messages, and trying to corral all this information into a Word document or something that's easy to use later. And so when we're thinking about this concept, I want you to know that this really is the result of 10 months of extensive research. We're fortunate to be working on this through an accelerator program at UCLA. And through this program, we've done over 200 hours of primary research, including customer discovery, interviews with competing CEOs. You'd be surprised how much information a CEO will give you when you say you're a graduate student researching your master's thesis. It's amazing. And so we've had really great luck finding key insights into what people think about travel and what are some of the best business models in the industry. And to talk a little bit about the research findings, we found 2 key things. One, as I mentioned before, sometimes people have a hard time identifying who to ask. 90% of survey respondents said they do like to rely on friends for advice, but even if they have one go-to friend, there may be other people in their network that they're missing out on great advice for. The other side is, on average, they're using over 5 sources of data. They're looking at Google, Yelp, TripAdvisor, they're talking to friends. They're trying to bring all this data together in one easy format, and that's the main pain point Another main pain point that we're solving with this, because we're giving you one easy place. You save all those recommendations down, you have an easy place to help you with your travel plan. And so when we look at the competitive landscape, I want to key in on one thing. There's a lot of competitors in the space, and we're not trying to fight against what we found in our primary research that people use and enjoy using over 5 sources of data. We actually think Handle complements this with highly personalized advice from friends. You look at this matrix and you see at the bottom, you up in TripAdvisor, aggregated data, people you don't know. You have to sift through it to find the right advice. For example, you might read a review on TripAdvisor. A family hated a resort that they went to because it wasn't kid-friendly. Or maybe you're traveling just with your wife or your husband or your significant other. And that doesn't really matter to you. So you're trying to find one that closely matches. But a friend, they already know all this information. They can give you great advice. So that's what we're seeing in the market. You have other players that are thrillists, they're bloggers with very high niche information. That's a good source of information as well. You got Facebook and Instagram. People use these for inspiration for travel destinations. There's a bunch of small players in our quadrant as well that are trying to use this business model, but they have an approach that's different to ours that we believe is key, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that later. But personalized friend advice is the key differentiator here on this competitive matrix, and we complement the other offerings. And so when you think about what they're doing wrong, this is what I was alluding to a little bit. One, TripAdvisor I mentioned, generic advice. And also, it can be biased, right? So, somebody may know the business owner, they may be given a positive review, favorable review for that reason. The big one I want to key in on here is Facebook. Facebook saw this problem, and they said, hey, let's build Facebook recommendations. Now, I recently did a test with I published a post that said, hey, I'm traveling to New Orleans, who has advice? I have over 1,000 friends on Facebook. Didn't get one response. What I did get was two text messages to my cell phone. Hey man, I've been to New Orleans, I got some advice for you. What are you looking for? This shows the big difference in all those competitors I mentioned. They have this push mechanism where they think they're going to publish all their high quality advice. But what we see is it's really happening in these high value exchanges directly between friends. Now the challenge with that, once again, is once you get all that advice, you're searching through text messages, emails, trying to bring all this data together. So Handle attacks both of those issues. It's a direct exchange between friends, higher accountability, whereas Facebook, you don't have accountability to that broadcasted post, and then you have one place where you can save all that information. And so now that I've talked about that, Phil is going to lead with how we plan to bring this idea to market.
Thank you, Felix. Can you guys hear me okay back there? All the way in the back. So we're really excited about building this platform for peer-to-peer advice, starting with travel. And for us, the ideal beachhead market is actually MBA students. Take a moment to think about the characteristics of an MBA class. These are people who came together to network, exchange, learn from each other. They have diverse backgrounds and experiences, and collectively they make up an amazing knowledge set. It's a great knowledge set that gets tapped somewhat, but there's low-hanging fruit that we can uncover with this model. We have a stat here from the New York Times that MBA students spend upwards of 20 to 30K on travel during their 2 years studying in the MBA. That may be on the high end, but the one thing that we know for sure from our classmates is that no matter what your spending situation is, people are very serious about travel. They have breaks, they go internationally, and people are focused on getting it right. So we notice within our class, there's this huge exchange of information. Somebody plans a trip and they start pinging friends, and it's extremely inefficient. So for us, this is the perfect beachhead market. Our vision for this company goes far beyond just MBA students, but we understand a need that's right in front of us right now, and we have access to the customers because they're our friends. Speaking of getting customers, we're looking at 3 types of people when we're targeting with this app. The evangelists, the collectors, and the seekers. Let's talk about these different groups. The evangelists are like your product geeks. They're the first person that had an iPhone, somebody who downloads the newest app. When they see something like Cancel, they're going to download it, experiment with it, and invite 10 friends just to get a little cool knowledge of it. Collectors are people that we noticed in our primary research. They're voracious travelers, and they go to a new place and they log everything they find. So when you ask a collector for advice, let's say on New Orleans, they forward you this email that's like a treasure trove. We saw this from multiple cities across multiple people. Some people collect all this, and it sits in a Word doc or an email or a Google Map. It's very disparate. And so these collectors, we realized for a long time, they've needed a home for this information, somewhere centralized. A lot of apps are trying to do it. We think we've got a better model here. And then finally, the seekers. This is anyone here sitting in this room needs advice, seeking it out. When we have the evangelists and the collectors on board, seekers are going to be able to tap into a wealth of knowledge. Now, go-to-market considerations. We're just startup guys here. We're starting from scratch like a lot of folks in this room. We are prototyping, but we're very cognizant of how hard it is to get users to bring on another app, right? We're kind of getting to app fatigue. And so our focus with deploying is making this work with very minimal and easy onboarding. You can let us scan your old photos, scan your old social media check-ins, take a quick survey to onboard onto our app, and then we'll find friends and suggest friends for you. We can get value in a very small group of people. This isn't like Facebook where you need 1,000 friends to get this big feed going. This is like a private, tight network of friends that have collective knowledge together. User retention, we want to gamify the system, give people status for helping others. At scale, give them discounts on in-app bookings, which is actually our business model. We talk to countless entrepreneurs in the travel space. So many travel startups don't have a viable business model. This is the viable business model in the travel space. It's bookings. This is a $400 billion industry that's shifting from offline to online. Our advantage in the online space is that this is a peer-to-peer platform. You trust what your friends recommend to you. It's different than going on Expedia, looking through hotels, going through ratings, the price, whatever. If your friend actually recommends something, you're more likely to buy it. And so that's our advantage to capture a piece of this market. And it's not just a pie-in-the-sky idea. We looked at these integrations that are super simple. You can use white labels like Comencia, partnerships with Booking.com to get a 6% commission on spend, open table integration, that type of thing. Or at scale, you can build your own relationships with suppliers and get up to 40% commission. Now I'll pause here and just say the big idea is this is monetization of friend-to-friend influence. We're doing this in travel because this is what's in front of us right now. But this is a model that can be replicated in consumer products, in financial advice, anytime friends are influencing each other to make a purchase decision. So our projected user growth and revenue, we're actually being very conservative with this. We believe the Y Combinator philosophy that you need a few people who love your product more so than you need a lot of people who like it. So we're actually going to go boots on the ground and manually bring on our first customers and iterate with them and get their feedback. So we're expecting to only onboard about 8,000 people in the first year. However, with that high engagement, we believe that we can get $23 of revenue per user per year using very modest conversion assumptions, that captures a fraction of people's travel spend. In later years, we show bigger growth with our digital marketing strategy. Projected income statement here, we're looking to raise $500,000 this year, $1 million next year, to turn profitable in year 3, and then get to scale in years 4 and 5. However, there could be an acquisition before that happens, of course. We are very fortunate to be working on this at UCLA with an amazing team. Felix talked about our designers, our engineers, our data scientists, but we have other MBAs with us, with amazing experience in developing software, in working in the travel industry, and with startup experience. I'd like to highlight here that one of our folks is an alum of Manipul IT, which I believe is your school. So Nikki is our head of product. Fantastic. We actually have weekly advising appointments with John Funk, our advisor, who's the next venture capitalist. And we have access to so many mentors, investors, advisors in the LA ecosystem that we've navigated this idea with their advice for many months and gotten them to our direction. So we feel very confident about the situation that we're in to launch this company right now. Which gets us to our offering to investors. We're raising our seed round right now, $500,000 through safe agreements. Like I said, thank you so much for coming in today, listening to our pitch, opening up to questions. Thank you.
Judges, 15 minutes starting with Bob.
Is this mic on? Can you all hear me?
Yes.
All right, can you hear on the mic? I'm just making sure Suzanne's comfortable with the mic either.
Good job, Bob.
So let me ask you. Well, first of all, a lot of those of us in the world of venture capital aren't convinced that an app is a business. But even if an app is a business, the question is, what's an idea worth? So the last 2 deals that I did in the last, several months, both had about $1 million of revenue, and both had about a $5 million valuation. Why on earth should I think about a $4.5 million pre-money for an idea that has not a single user today?
That's a great question. We actually got that in the first round. So a couple answers to that. First off, we're actually not claiming a valuation as we did in the printed document anymore.
Well, you just showed us a slide that showed a $5 million post-money and a $500,000 raise
That was actually just a safe round.
on the safe. But that's a valuation. That cap on the safe is a valuation.
Yeah, so
It's a mark.
That's a very good question. We're basing this off of our anecdotal information that we get from being in the startup ecosystem in LA. Valuations.
Okay, so the 2 companies I just mentioned are in the Bay Area, which has higher valuations than LA.
They do have higher valuations. And so companies that we're exposed to are actually getting valued at $45 million pre-product. However, someone like us, we have these anecdotal data points. Someone like us, more realistic, is actually like the Y Combinator type valuation would be about $2 million.
So you ought to change your slide to reflect that. But let me just kind of put that in context. So a company that just sold to one of those, very large social media companies, we had 12 billion use cases a month, no revenue, just use cases, 12 billion use cases a month. That company sold for about 100 million. So anybody who's getting a $45 million idea valuation, that is either, kind of fantasy or, gosh, take it and quit. The other question I have is, as I think about how large this business could be.
Do you have a long list of questions?
No, this is my second and last question. I just want to take your question and use it now quickly, Ken, which is, how many MBAs are there in the United States?
There's about 500,000 people.
So there are the entire universe of your target market is 500,000 people.
That's our beachhead market, our target market.
Okay. I'm going to pass it on to Ken because he's going to pick up on that.
Thank you, Bob.
Well, I have one first. Congratulations on making it to the finals. Secondly, I have about 6 questions, but I'm going to start with this one. You talk about using machine learning to score helpfulness of the recommendations you get. I'm in the data science business. The machine learning and neural networking and all the algos are amazingly accurate when you have lots of data points. I don't see you projecting user volume that's going to allow that to become accurate and predictive, right? And I'd like your response to that. I just want to make one little comment, and that is, as I look at it in the discussion in the judge room, you guys have to become viral and have a large user base much earlier in your plan if you're going to be successful. So I'd love to hear the response to that.
So we've heard that before from good advisors that you need a lot more data to actually do the data science right. So we would do simplified versions early on. But try to figure out the clicker. So to do predictive analytics, yes, you need the hundreds of thousands of data points. To do simple analysis on where your friends have been and how helpful they are, and that being a value add on top of the current workflow is actually not that complicated. I wouldn't even call it data science, but it's something that is a product feature. But if we look at similar, like comparable exits, you've actually got companies selling for 30 million, 50 million with under 100,000 users. So these are just some data points where you don't actually have to have a million users to do it.
Okay, all right. The interesting thing to me is I was thinking to myself as a data scientist, how in the world would I go about scoring helpfulness? Okay, so you want to explain to me how that gets done?
Great question, actually. So on the tech side, I did write the preliminary spec on how we would do this. And so we have our data scientists working with initial data set. There's 2 gold mines of data on your cell phone right this minute. Every photo you take is filled with metadata, where you took it, the speed you were traveling when you took it, tons of data. And Instagram, social media has all the hashtags of where you've been. So we have our data scientists looking at that data set and finding the commonalities. Things like how recent have you been there? Somebody who's been to South Africa 6 months ago, a month ago, someone who's lived there for a certain amount of time because they have a ton of photos there over an extended period of time, that's just one metric. We have several of things like that can help us start to build this out. And like Phil was saying, it's not necessarily predictive, but it's telling you, based on the information that you know where you've been, we can kind of score you and rank you how helpful you can be compared to other friends in your network.
Okay.
Great, thank you. Great presentation. Congratulations on making it to this point. I'll keep it real simple. What do you believe is your defendable competitive advantage? Like, what do you have that's going to keep 2 other bright college MBA students from going out and competing with you?
Yeah, I'd be happy to take that one. So this is actually an idea that anybody could do in a version of it. The only kind of like IP advantage we have is the algorithm that Felix has written that we're talking about here. But for us, it's actually execution. So a lot of MBAs in particular is easy because people like to talk, think, sit in a room. We've actually built apps before. We've got customers on board before. This is our second go around. And so we're the kind of guys who don't just like sit here and dream and talk. Like we love the execution part, like live for that. So that's, for us, that's our difference, especially against our classmates. We're just like, we love the execution part. But in terms of the business answer, it's really the algorithm and user growth. Those are the biggest things. We want to grow users in something that isn't perfectly replicatable and then self-confident. It's actually the way you have to do it now when there's big giants out there like Facebook, and Google who can just snatch up companies. That's what we're thinking. Grow users yourself. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So my question is, so you talked about your initial, your first year you're looking at 8,000 users. How big is an individual's network? So if I have a friend network, how big is it? And then so if I want to post a question to my friend network, let's say I want to go to Hawaii and I'm looking for a Thai food restaurant in Hawaii. You want to find someone that has the more recent trip that you're going to evaluate based on your data science, that in the last 6 months or something they've traveled to Hawaii and they've eaten at a Thai food place so that they can give me valuable advice. So help me understand what is the size of the network in this app that you're going to build for me that can give me that most current valuable advice.
So what we're thinking is it's going to be a very tight-knit group of individuals. So you might invite your 10 closest friends to the platform. But imagine our beachhead market. UCLA, for example, is 380 students. And our plan for those 8,000 is to go around to the business schools on the West Coast first. So you can imagine a tight-knit network of maybe your 10 closest friends, but then your extended network of your full B school kind of cohort. And those people have travel experience that ranges across the whole world, basically. And so that's our philosophy behind how you can kind of leverage that network to get really good travel.
So you're assuming that in that 10 close-knit and 1,000 the second-level friends that you can find people of similar interest, people like me, with the same metadata of my attributes, of my preferences, and you'll find a match.
Absolutely, we've already seen this. So we've taken preliminary data sets that we've delivered to our data scientists with just 5. Just the team members that we have within Instagram. You'd be amazed at the types of relationships they're able to build just with that small data set. And we've done similar things with larger, with like 10 to 20 people. And we've covered the entire city of LA pretty much with just 10 people with our previous idea that Phil was mentioning before. So we do believe that's possible.
So I've got a really basic question and then a second part to that. So one is I'd like to understand your definition of friendship.
Yeah. Okay, so the first, that's a really good question. I'll go ahead and take that. So the way we plan on building this out is the best comparison we can think of is Venmo. So Venmo was really great at doing this right. And what they did was they immediately sunk with your phone contacts. So the people on your phone are most likely the people that are closest to you. And you'll go and invite the people that you feel are relevant to you. But that's where we start with this.
And when I think of my friends, so you heard the term opposites attract. So all my friends, the reason I'm friends with them is because we are so different in thought and spirit and tastes. So how does that work then, if their tastes are radically different from mine?
That's really great.
Yeah, I can take that one. So I think the taste issue is interesting. Your friends know you, right? So they know, like, if they've recommended stuff to you before and you didn't take it, there's like a human level of kind of judgment in there. But the whole point of this is taking an inventory of knowledge amongst people and just seeing what pops up. So your friends actually, you may believe that you're different from them, but they may have advice that you need that you just never would have come to level of thought had you not taken this quick survey.
So your definition is anyone who's on my phone's address book is a friend. Is that true?
And you would invite folks into your circle. So
And how would I incentivize them to come and want to post about all the trips they've been on?
Great, that's the best question. Do you want to take it? That posting is an evil word in this conversation. Posting is push. Our whole view of technology is based on somebody who wants to push their opinion into the world. I'm a Yelper, pushing this opinion out. We notice that push is only for certain people. Most people pull. I have a need and my friend's going to help me out. And so that's actually the big difference here. You talk about competitive advantage. Facebook is the first pull mechanism and they flubbed it on the first go. It's just not working. It's pull and it's private pull, and that's where actually people get the best interaction. And so that's what the difference is with us. It's just private pulls of information. Does that make sense? Okay.
I have another question, comment first and then I want you to respond to it. I have looked at hundreds of business plans over the last 20 years, and one of the patterns, one of the negative patterns that I see in your plan is you show an unbelievable revenue hockey stick, right? So we go along for 100,000 the first year and 800,000 the second year and 2 million, then 6 million, then 19 million. I'd advise you to revise that, a lot of investors will take a look, they'll flip through, they'll find that, and they'll toss your plan in the trash can. And you guys really should think this through. This is probably not defendable as it is there.
And these are the numbers you're talking about here, just like too fast growth on the top line here.
No, I'm saying that you need to do a lot better in the second and third year in order to be interesting to a venture capital person.
I would just piggyback on that, or pile on, depending on how you look at it. That the printed version we got had zero cost of goods all the way through, and all of us were like, you know, what? You know, grant maybe something happened here with, you know, copying cells over, but then that generated in your index a couple of things that were missed links. I mean, it literally says error bookmark not defined. To even print this that way is a fatal mistake, right? I mean, amongst venture capitalists, it would literally just get thrown in the trash can. They're not going to ask you back to explain that.
Yeah.
So I would just say attention to detail matters in presentation of this type of stuff. You're doing a great job on stage, but in order to get to that, you've got to nail this and the executive summary and that type of stuff.
So that there is no response to that. You're right, we missed that detail. And we did submit a plan later, but it didn't get printed, so it's like a version control thing. But we're constantly updating the financial model, and what you say really matters to us. I think this model, and we'll be completely transparent, this is what we're least comfortable with, is the financial modeling. We probably had $200 million in revenue when we were fine, you know, maybe 2 months ago. So we're learning as like almost lay people become MBAs on what makes sense in these projections, and everything that you say to us, we've taken to account.
Do you have anything on virality? Any math or graphs of how this virally goes? Do you have any of that in the presentation that we didn't see?
We have in a separate presentation our analysis of like what we need to happen for this to go viral, what our viral coefficient would be, and what the behaviors are. We actually did not have that.
That would be a really good addition to this.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you a question.
We have a minute and a half,
Yes.
Dennis. Minute and a half.
So enough with the commentary. Quick question. Can you show your balance sheet? I didn't find a balance sheet in the document I have. Can you show us the balance sheet?
We do not have a balance sheet.
That's a problem.
Yes.
Could you pull up your competitive matrix? Here, okay. So this has to do with competitive defensibility. You got a lot of parties there who, if this were an interesting viral business, might find it, you know, kind of interesting enough to pay attention to. What is your barrier to imitation? What prevents, you know, any of those large players from, if this were interesting, immediately knocking it off?
Yeah, we have very weak defense against the Facebooks of the world. Our algorithm and our user growth and our brand and our specificity are parts of that. But to be honest, we're at a point in tech where guys like us come up with a good idea, grow it, and sell it. That's what I was kind of alluding to earlier. That everything is copyable. Even Snapchat blew up, and their main thing has just been copied by Instagram.
Yeah. The only reason I buy it is if it costs more to imitate than to buy, I buy it. If I can knock it off, I just knock it off. Because my data scientists are, you know, much better than any startup's data scientists.